Thank you so much for joining us on this Halloween. It is Friday. This is Weather Out West. I'm meteorologist Ashley Ruiz. Here's what we're tracking for you this morning. What will trick-or-treating conditions be like in your neighborhood? You can see in Western Washington, we have an active radar. We'll bring you forecasts from around the region. And we'll learn some common misconceptions about bats as Northern California wraps up Bat Week. And later on, some tips to keep your furry friends safe on Halloween. Once again, we want to thank you so much for joining us on Weather Out West. If you haven't joined us before, this is an hour-long show where we tell you what's happening weather-wise across the western United States, and we have a couple of fun things in the mix, especially today on Halloween. Over half of Seattle's past 79 Halloweens were rainy. That's according to data from the Seattle-Tacoma Airport. And this year, you saw that little sneak peek. It's going to be rainy. I have the details on the heavy rain and gusty winds headed to Western Washington. Hey there, a very happy Halloween to you from Seattle, Washington. I'm King 5 meteorologist Ashley Ruiz, tracking a very spooky and wet Halloween here in Western Washington. It is going to be a little blustery at times as well, with heavier rain arriving tonight and into the first half of our Saturday. And this weekend, friendly reminder, we fall back 1 hour Saturday night and Sunday morning. So if you're going to continue your Halloween festivities, you get 1 extra hour to do so Saturday night, Sunday morning. If you're just going to sleep, then extra hour of sleep, and it's going to be beneficial, I'm sure, for all of us. But let's talk about that forecast, because it is going to be a wet one, which, looking back to some data all the way from the 40s and 50s, on average, we've had more wet Halloweens here in Western Washington, and the tradition's going to continue into today. But generally, it's been on the lighter side of things. But Seattle, 55% of our Halloweens since records began, so 1945 at the Seattle-Tacoma Airport, 55% of them. And then you see closer to the coast, Hoquiam, and typically our wetter spots near the coast, nearly 66% of Halloweens going back on records, averaging a very wet Halloween, if you will, more than not. But today, again, we're going to have increasing rain, gusty winds, but the weather team, we've issued a first alert for Friday night and into Saturday, when we're expecting the brunt of the impacts, especially if we get this little sneaky low pressure system developing, and that could bring us some more wind and some more heavy rain. So that's something we're watching. But into the back half of our weekend, decreasing showers and becoming partly sunny. Next week, staying a bit on the soggy side, pretty active with just a couple of systems rolling through. So once again, first alert weather mode Friday night and into Saturday because of the threat of heavy rain, 30+ mile per hour gust, river rises because of the high snow levels and the heavy rain, ponding on the roads, maybe some clogged drains, and yes, once again, power outages are possible. So we'll keep a close eye on that. A look around Western Washington. It's been so beautiful this morning despite the cloud cover. We had just very festive sunrises this morning with oranges and pinks, and it was just beautiful. We have clouds rolling in out ahead of this system, a couple of showers moving over South Sound, the Cascade foothills, and generally north of Seattle, getting some of that rain shadowing from the Olympics. But the main event is still offshore, and that's going to spread over the area afternoon, evening. There are a couple of wind alerts in place. The North Coast, Northwest Interior, so think Whidbey Island, Friday Harbor, Orcas Island, that's a wind advisory this morning through tonight for the potential for gusts up to 50. That's where we'll have the strongest winds today, but then it's going to be breezy for everyone. So the kiddos will likely need the rain gear just with them for trick-or-treating, though there could be a couple of breaks and winds will start to die down a little bit overnight before picking right back up. So let's pick things back up Saturday morning. You see how potentially some wind gusts over 30-40 miles per hour will be possible pretty much all for Western Washington, not just the coast or the Islands or the northwest interior. Then they will start to die down, still a little gusty at times into Saturday, but peaking Saturday morning into the early afternoon. Let's talk rain timing, because that one band I showed you offshore as of 9 o'clock this morning, that is going to spread to the east. Here's around trick-or-treating time. You see some steady rain for much of the area, maybe some breaks northwest of Seattle, and then more rain pushes in overnight. It's really going to be overnight after midnight and into the pre-dawn hours, but it's really going to be pretty steady Saturday morning and then eventually tapering off, except for the convergence zone by the afternoon. In terms of rain totals on average for Puget Sound, 1 to 2 for the rain shadow, so northeast of the Olympics, generally less than 1 inch. This is for 48 hours. The highest totals up in the mountains, which, speaking of, we're going to have to watch for some river rises because we're going to have such high snow levels. And so rivers that run off the Cascades and the Olympics may reach action stage on Saturday and into Sunday. So it will be something we watch. And a look at the river levels, again, action stage. So we're not expecting major flooding for our rivers, but still we'll keep a close eye on. And as I mentioned, daylight saving comes to an end November 2nd, and our sunset time on Sunday in Seattle before 5 o'clock at 4:49 p.m. It's going to be a rainy Halloween for our friends in Western Oregon as well. Portland's Rod Hill has all of those spooky details.
Halloween in Portland on a Friday. I'm meteorologist Rod Hill. Well, yes, it looks like it will be a steady rain here in the Rose City this evening for the trick-or-treat hours of what, 6, 7, ending before 9 o'clock. The question we have as forecasters is, do we get lucky and it's kind of a light rain, or does the rain get heavier and heavier as we progress through the evening hours? And that's probably the most likely scenario. This morning, we're already seeing the clouds push inland from the storm front. The main rain band is offshore, but radar has been indicating just a touch of some light rain already up around Astoria and Long Beach and even inland into some areas of southwest Washington. I do want to touch on the wind. So this is this evening. Well, this is 9 p.m., but it's about the same at 7 and 8. Still an east wind coming out of the Columbia and then south winds racing up the valley. This shows wind speeds generally not more than 15, but maybe a little breezier than that if you're getting that east wind out of the gorge. And then south winds, not a problem, but noticeable, 15 to 25 mile per hour wind gusts along the coast. Now, there is some concern for stronger winds tomorrow. This is Saturday at 10:30. The front that's driving all of this comes in about midday tomorrow. So out ahead of the front, 10:30 Saturday morning, south gusts 40 to 45 racing up the coast, south winds gusting to about 30 coming up the valley. Not strong enough for advisories or warnings, but definitely strong enough to catch your attention and be noticeable, right? And then when the front passes later in the day Saturday, all of the winds will start to calm down. So here's our Futurecast movie. I mentioned already a touch of some light moisture up around Astoria in the mouth of the Columbia River. This shows at 3 o'clock the main rain band now pushing inland to the north coast. It shows at 6 o'clock the main rain band starting to move into Portland. But here's the catch. I absolutely believe that there will be light rain falling out ahead of the main rain band that's being shown here. So hence, steady rain right from the get-go for our trick-or-treaters. And a reminder, the dark green, the yellow, that's good moderate rain. The orange colors are really heavy rain coming down. So this shows that, yeah, the rain will probably pick up and get heavier as we go through the trick-or-treat time. This is 9 o'clock. Now the ghosts and goblins, the little ones, are back home. The rain continues overnight. So folks out and about at Halloween parties going to get caught in some heavy rain bands at times, and the winds will be starting to pick up as well. Now here's Saturday afternoon at 2 o'clock. I still think this could be a little slower than what this indicates, but if this is right, the main front comes through by noon, the rain out ahead of it, and then tomorrow afternoon quickly just breaks into some scattered showers and the winds will start to fade. There you saw some scattered showers moving through. There may or may not be an early morning shower Sunday. Otherwise, Sunday looks all dry to start, and then later in the day, we're looking at some increasing cloud cover. So how much rain? Well, the weather model says from what comes in later today through tomorrow, through Saturday, anything from 1 to over 2 inches in Lincoln City along the central coast, and from Salem northward an inch or more. Now, I will share with you, there are weather models that show as little in Portland as about 65/100ths to about 7/10ths of an inch of rain as we go through some live cameras for you. Temperatures will generally be in the 50s statewide today. And then here's Portland's 7-day forecast.
After celebrating Halloween this weekend, most Americans are going to get that extra hour of sleep. Daylight saving ends on Sunday and our clocks will fall back 1 hour. The time change also means our days will be shorter, nights will be longer as we get closer to the winter solstice. And as the official start date of winter, which by the way is December 21st, daylight saving for most of the United States and many other countries begins in March when our clocks skip forward, so spring ahead 1 hour. It ends on the first Sunday in November. Now, the practice began in Europe and the U.S. during World War I to save fuel and power. In the U.S., states are not required by law to fall back or spring forward. Hawaii, most of Arizona, and some other territories in the Pacific and Caribbean do not observe daylight saving. And coming up after a quick break, we'll see if the weather in Spokane and Boise will be a trick or a treat. Northern California is wrapping up Bat Week, putting a cap on spooky season. Earlier this week, KXTV's Jay Struberg sat down with NorCal Bats and some special guests.
Well, for Halloween, you can either face your fear or be afraid of it. And for many people, that fear can be in the form of a small winged mammal. And today we're going to talk about bats. Luckily, we're joined by Corky Quirk with NorCal Bats. Thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
You betcha.
All right, let's talk about this, because the minute I mentioned that we were bringing bats into this building, people started to freak out a little bit. They're wondering, like, bats are going to be flying around, whatnot. Let's talk about what you do at your organization and about the bat itself.
Okay. So first of all, NorCal Bats does wildlife rescue and education programs. So people find bats sometimes that are injured. We have a lot of bats in the Sacramento area. It's kind of amazing. And we get a call and try to help that bat recover and return to the wild. But sometimes we have an injured bat that we're not able to repair well enough. And if that bat will never be able to live in the wild, and that's usually due to a permanent wing injury, then they stay and they travel around with us and help us to help people get over their fears.
And of course, these creatures so associated with Halloween, often depicted in very scary ways. Any misconceptions that we need to know about when it comes to bats?
Yeah, bats they're actually vital for us. I don't see them as scary animals. Of course, I'm working with them all the time. But they're small mammals that really don't particularly want to interact with us. They want to be out there hunting insects. And so their role in the ecosystem, in our environment, is to consume huge amounts of insects. So they're kind of our natural pest control. And when bat populations don't do well, then insecticide use goes up, and that has human health impacts.
Where do bats, you mentioned some of these are California species?
All three of these are native.
Okay, so where might we find them in California? Is it like a cave, dark places?
Not necessarily. We have 26 species of bat in the state of California, 17 in the northern part of our state, and they could be under the bark of a tree, they could be under the eaves of your house, they're in our parking garages, our bridges and overpasses. We've really destroyed a lot of their habitat. Certainly caves and dead trees would have been great places for them, but how many caves are there in Sacramento?
They feed mostly on insects? Is that what they're after?
They only feed on insects. The pallid bat will eat other invertebrates like a scorpion, but we have no fruit bats in the United States except at the zoo. Right? No vampires,
No vampires.
No.
Kind of a letdown there. All right, give us an overall view, synopsis of Bat Week, what it's about, the most important message you have for folks back home.
Yeah, so Bat Week is the 7 days leading up to Halloween, and because bats are often, and nocturnal animals are often associated with Halloween, right? And so it's just an opportunity when people are already kind of thinking about that stuff to help educate, and what are the roles? What are the roles worldwide? Why shouldn't we fear them? How can we keep ourselves safe from wildlife? How can we live with wildlife around us? And for bats, I mean, they're mammals, right? So
Right.
they have live birth. They nurse their young. Most bats only have one baby per year, if ever, not even every year. If you look at, I brought some toys, they're not huge animals. So like this big brown bat here, flying would be about the size of this toy, right? And they have the same bone structure that we do, which is kind of amazing. You can actually see it better in this toy. So this
How
is,
so?
Yeah, so this is the arm, right? So just like our arm, there's an elbow and a wrist. This little thing sticking up is the thumb. And then these four fingers plus the thumb, they fly with their hands.
It's fascinating and to learn the whole story about bats, because it's very easy to just live in fear and go, Halloween, bats, they're flying, they're going to come bite me.
So
But
you
to
know what I'm
what-
afraid of?
what's-
I'm afraid of insecticides because I know the chemical damage that can do to my body. And I know these guys are reducing the quantity that farmers need to use. So super helpful.
Great point to end on right there. Corky Quirk with NorCal Bats. Happy Bat Week to you. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing this
bet.
vital information. Appreciate
You
it.
bet.
Happy Bat Week and happy Halloween. Coming up next, we'll take a look at the Halloween weekend forecast from Sacramento and San Diego. Northern California is wrapping up Bat Week, putting a cap on spooky season. Earlier this week, KXTV's Jay Struberg sat down with NorCal Bats and some special guests.
Well, for Halloween, you can either face your fear or be afraid of it. And for many people, that fear can be in the form of a small winged mammal. And today we're going to talk about bats. Luckily, we're joined by Corky Quirk with NorCal Bats. Thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
You betcha.
All right, let's talk about this, because the minute I mentioned that we were bringing bats into this building, people started to freak out a little bit. They're wondering, like, bats are going to be flying around, whatnot. Let's talk about what you do at
Sure.
your organization and about the bat itself.
Okay. So first of all, NorCal Bats does wildlife rescue and education programs. So people find bats sometimes that are injured. We have a lot of bats in the Sacramento area. It's kind of amazing. And we get a call and try to help that bat recover and return to the wild. But sometimes we have an injured bat that we're not able to repair well enough. And if that bat will never be able to live in the wild, and that's usually due to a permanent wing injury, then they stay and they travel around with us and help us to help people get over their fears.
And of course, these creatures so associated with Halloween, often depicted in very scary ways. Any misconceptions that we need to know about when it comes to bats?
Yeah, bats they're actually vital for us. I don't see them as scary animals. Of course, I'm working with them all
Right.
the time. But they're small mammals that really don't particularly want to interact with us. They want to be out there hunting insects. And so their role in the ecosystem, in our environment, is to consume huge amounts of insects. So they're kind of our natural pest control. And when bat populations don't do well, then insecticide use goes up, and that has human health impacts.
Where do bats, you mentioned some of these were California species?
All three of these are
them?
native.
Okay, so where might we find them in California? Is it like a cave, dark places?
Not
Where?
necessarily. We have 26 species of bat in the state of California, 17 in the northern part of our state, and they could be under the bark of a tree, they could be under the eaves of your house, they're in our parking garages, our bridges and overpasses. We've really destroyed a lot of their habitat. Certainly caves and dead trees would have been great places for them, but how many caves are there in Sacramento?
They feed mostly on insects? Is that what they're after?
They only feed on insects. The pallid bat will eat other invertebrates like a scorpion, but we have no fruit bats in the United States except at the zoo. Right? No vampires.
No vampires.
No.
Kind of a letdown there. All right, give us an overall view, synopsis of Bat Week, what it's about, the most important message you have for folks back home.
Yeah, so Bat Week is the 7 days leading up to Halloween. And, because bats are often, and nocturnal animals, are often associated with Halloween, right? And so it's just an opportunity when people are already kind of thinking about that stuff to help educate. And what are the roles? What are the roles worldwide? Why shouldn't we fear them? How can we keep ourselves safe from wildlife? How can we live with wildlife around us? And for bats, they're mammals, right? So they have live birth. They nurse their young. Most bats only have one baby per year, if ever, not even every year. If you look at, I brought some toys, they're not huge animals. So like this big brown bat here, flying would be about the size of this toy, right? And they have the same bone structure that we do, which is kind of amazing. You can actually see it better in this toy. So this
How
is,
so?
Yeah, so this is the arm, right? So just like our arm, there's an elbow and a wrist. This little thing sticking up is the thumb. And then these 4 fingers plus the thumb, they fly with their hands.
It's fascinating and to learn the whole story about bats, because it's very easy to just live in fear and go, Halloween, bats, they're flying, they're going to come bite me.
So
but
you know what I'm afraid of? I'm afraid of insecticides, because I know the chemical damage that can do to my body. And I know these guys are reducing the quantity that farmers need to use. So super helpful.
Great point to end on right there. Corky Quirk with NorCal Bats. Happy Bat Week to you. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing this vital information. Appreciate that.
Happy Bat Week and happy Halloween. Coming up next, we'll take a look at the Halloween weekend forecast from Sacramento and San Diego. Welcome back to Weather Out West on this Friday, Halloween, and thankfully there are no tricks in the forecast in Northern California. Mostly sunny and unseasonably warm temperatures, but not just for Halloween, but straight through the first weekend of November. Sacramento's Monica Woods has the details.
I'm meteorologist Monica Woods, and we're checking out some gorgeous weather heading into this weekend. As we fall back, we get an extra hour to enjoy it as well. Morning clouds for the coast. Warm fall temperatures continue for the valley. For the foothills, we've got that peak fall color, which is starting to move its way down the hill. Dry and mild in the Sierra. Speaking of the fall color, how about this? This is along Highway 88. Love to see all the festive shots out there. Nevada City, gorgeous. Golden and kind of reddish glow. And then Burney Falls. This is one of the quintessential falls in Northern California. You can see it's also highlighted by some gorgeous fall color there. Bishop City Park, we've got beautiful fall color in the golds just highlighted on the water. That's also the case at Silver Lake in Mono County. So again, some great fall color. It is starting to move its way down the hill. So we're at about the peak for Apple Hill and Calaveras counties. It's going to be in the Urban Valley Forest here as we head into November, which of course is this weekend. We don't have too much in the way of wet weather. We had a lot of winds over the past week or so, and that knocked down almost all the color in the higher elevations. We've got some north winds developing into our Friday evening forecast. That'll take us through the weekend. A little bit of patchy low clouds and fog for the coast, but But other than that, it's a dry outlook all the way through this first weekend of November, which includes the time change. So for Sacramento, this is going to be the shift in our time change here and our sunrise and sunset. On November 1st, that's Saturday, our sunrise 7:33, and then Sunday it drops to 6:34. And then, of course, that sunset an hour earlier. On Saturday at 6:05, and on Sunday it's 5:04. So we're getting to that time of year where that sun sets earlier and earlier. Friday temperatures include highs in the 60s for the Tahoe Basin. We're in the 70s for the foothills, and that will pretty much be uniform as we move our way southward. Near 70 for some of the mountain areas, although Yosemite's up to 79 degrees, and we've got 70s as well throughout much of the urban valley floor. Our highs are in the 60s and 70s across the central coast. Just a little mix of sun and clouds in there. For the San Joaquin Valley, we'll be in the upper 70s, slightly above average. For the Bay Area forecast, our highs are in the 60s with a mix of sun and clouds. Take it inland, we're in the upper 70s to near 80, almost 10 degrees above average, wrapping up this work and school week. And for Halloween and the end of October, we're in the 60s along the northwest coast as we head into the north part of the valley. Highs will be in the low 80s to right around the upper 70s. Overnight lows, though, by the way, are still quite cold. We're in the upper 40s to right around 50. That's typical for this time of year, but it at least has that fall feel, whereas those afternoon highs are sitting above average again for our Friday. And it really lasts through the upcoming weekend as well. Mix of sun and clouds, temperatures above average, and then we start to see some cooling come our way by the middle of the next work week. That's when we're going to introduce the opportunity of some showers moving in as well. A lot on this extended forecast. We've got, of course, Halloween for our Friday with a high of 77, moving into the first weekend of November, staying unseasonably warm. Usually our highs are right around the low 70s, so we're going to be about 5 to almost 10 degrees above average. Mix of sun and clouds for California. We've got Election Day, a special election taking place on Tuesday. Our highs are going to be in the 70s. By the time we get to the middle of the week, that's when we drop those afternoon highs to the upper 60s and bring in a chance of showers.
Beautiful conditions in Sacramento, and it looks like our friends in San Diego are in for a nice weekend as well. Vanessa Paz has those details.
Well, happy Halloween and Friday from San Diego, California. I'm CBS 8 meteorologist Vanessa Paz. The county woke up to some pockets of dense fog this morning, but as we're getting the sun warming up the atmosphere, a lot of those low-level clouds are mixing out, and we're looking at a really nice day ahead of us. We are starting off on the mild end in the 60s, but this afternoon, daytime highs, especially for interior parts of the county, will soar into the high 70s, low 80s, a few degrees warmer than where we should typically be for this time of year. Meanwhile, for the coastal areas, we'll see a lot more mid to low 70s and even some high 60s in the mix later on this afternoon. I'm forecasting for our mountain areas, high 70s out in Julian. We'll be in the low 90s for areas like Borrego Springs later on this afternoon. And for those, anyone trick-or-treating or maybe visiting San Diego to trick-or-treat, here's that forecast for you. We'll be in the 60s from the coast all the way to the mountain areas. The mountains will be breezy in the low 60s. We'll be in the low 80s, spooky warm in our deserts. We'll climb into the high 60s around the 7 o'clock hour for the inland areas, and we'll bottom out in the mid to low 60s for our coastal spots. All right, big picture, here's what's going on. We had a ridge of high pressure. It was offshore, but looking ahead to this weekend, it's going to shimmy a little eastward. The center of it will be right over Southern California, and that's going to allow the return for easterly flow. So what that means is things are going to be breezy, dry, and warm again Saturday and Sunday. The heat peaks on Sunday until things start to simmer down. The reason why we're looking at cooler temperatures next week is because we'll have a couple areas of low pressure. This one will sink further south down over off the coast of Northern California, and this is going to increase onshore flow for us here in San Diego. It's looking like we won't get any rain out of this system, but it is going to cool things down and put a lot of areas across our region back to normal in terms of temperatures. As we take a look at the weather headlines, first got to give a shout out to one of our loyal viewers, Don Beadog. He sent in that photo, gorgeous photo of a hummingbird. Nice and mild Halloween on tap. We will have some slight warming this weekend along with that easterly flow returning. And then overall next week, we do have a cooling trend ahead. All right, do not forget to turn your clocks back 1 hour. The time changes early on Sunday, but it's probably best to change the clocks back before you head to bed on Saturday night. The best time, Sunday sunrise will now be at 6 o'clock here in San Diego, and the sun will set Sunday before the 5 o'clock hour, which is crazy to say out loud. But yeah, we're going to lose a lot less of that day, or we're going to have a lot less of that daylight. The coastal areas will be in the low 70s, high 60s. Subtle daily changes really all the way through next week. Minimal changes day by day. The inland areas will shoot up into the low 80s by the time we get to Sunday, and then we're cooling down gradually, very slowly. We're in the high 70s rebounding by the time we get to early next week, and then we'll be pushing into the mid 70s by Wednesday and Thursday. Here's a quick look at the coast, or the mountains and desert 7-day forecast. We'll be in the high 70s this afternoon, really staying in that range of the high 70s, low 80s all the way through Sunday, and then temperatures will drop significantly by the time we get to next Wednesday and Thursday. We're talking low 70s, and take a look at those overnight lows, staying very brisk in the low 40s in some areas. For our deserts, we'll be in the low 90s, 80s, eventually making a rebound by the time we get to next Tuesday and Wednesday.
Coming up after the break, we'll take a look at your forecast for Phoenix and Denver. Welcome back to Weather Out West on this Friday. I'm meteorologist Ashley Ruiz. Let's take you to Arizona, where Phoenix's Ginger Jeffries is actually tracking a cool down, finally.
I'm meteorologist Ginger Jeffries with a look at your weather out west on this final day of October, where, yeah, our temperatures don't necessarily look October-esque since we are on the warmer side. But those overnights, we could certainly feel it in the early morning hours and definitely tonight because the air is abundantly dry, because our skies are pretty clear. It is going to be on the cooler side. But you know what? I want to take a look at our climate data for today. The coldest Halloween we've ever seen. Temperatures dropped down to 59 degrees. Ouch, that happened in 1972. Now, these are daytime highs, remember. Now, the warmest Halloween we've ever seen was 96 degrees. Thankfully, we're not going to be up at record territory. We're also not going to be at our coldest. We're going to be edging a little bit closer to the normal range and even on the warmer side. And as far as rain, the heaviest rainfall we've ever seen on this date in history, rather impressive. Over an inch of rain. It happened in 1957. In fact, it has only rained 11 times on Halloween here in the desert. Most recently, if you can call it that, happened in 1987. Meantime, what I've got in the works for you today, look at this. Pretty clear skies. We've got a couple thin clouds, mainly to the northern tier of the state, but I do expect some of these thin clouds to migrate into Phoenix a little bit later this afternoon into the evening. Otherwise, temperature-wise, well, we're seeing upper 80s and low 90s today. Havasu, about 90 degrees. I've got 64 in Flagstaff and 86 in Tucson. Around the region today, we've got upper 80s on the board. Finally, I know it's a mental thing, but man, to finally see those numbers drop out of 90-degree status, I'll take it, Buckeye. 88 for you, 86 in Scottsdale, 87 in Queen Creek, and 88 in Sun Lakes. But for tonight, of course, as you take your trick-or-treaters out there, I want to give you a look at what the numbers are like by the hour. Yep, grab them. Here we go. 7 o'clock this evening, we've got upper 70s. By 8 o'clock, mid 70s, and we should be down around 74 degrees by 9 o'clock under mostly clear skies. So what's happening? Yep, just some mid-level clouds working on through. High pressure is in charge, and that's keeping our temperatures on the warm side. But these mid-level clouds are basically going to skirt through the atmosphere today and tomorrow. Really not just a major change up. It's just not going to be that brilliant blue commanding sunshine all day, but we will get plenty of sun out there as highs are going to get up to about 89 degrees under mostly sunny skies. Winds out of the east at 5 miles an hour. Meantime, yesterday we continued our streak of 90-degree highs above our average range of 84. That puts the grand total for us so far at 178. Normal for us is about 173. So we're above the normal range. And the reason I say so far is I think we're going to revisit the 90s next week. Meantime, tonight, this is what I'm talking about. I mean, this is definitely fall feels, right? Mid 50s in Chandler. I've got 62 in Phoenix and about 59 tonight in Glendale. All right, let's take a peek ahead. What's on the docket for this weekend? Temperatures are going to be climbing slightly. That means upper 60s in Flagstaff by Sunday, but your overnight conditions will maintain 30-degree status. And then for the valley, we are going to enjoy the 80s today and tomorrow. We're going to bump the numbers on Sunday, but then next week, it does look like a cooling trend will be settling in. Look for our daytime highs to be closer to normal by the middle part of next week.
Get ready for a big temperature swing in Denver. Kathy Sabin and Katie LaSalle are here with your forecast.
Hello from Denver, Colorado. I'm 9 News Weather Impact Team Chief Meteorologist Kathy Sabin. We have a cool but dry Halloween after a really nice week of pretty sunrise and pretty sunset shots. A lot of people think this is the Broncos orange sunset after another big win last weekend. So we always love when our viewers send in sort of the view from their weather window of what's happening across the state. Our state and the western U.S. right under the influence of a building block of high pressure. This blocking ridge will keep the storm track to the north, will not allow storms to cross Colorado, and therefore we don't have any appreciable, really precipitation, measurable precipitation in the forecast for the next 5 to 7 days. And that's unusual because we have not seen the first snow in Denver yet. We've seen the first freeze, and there's no signs of a big storm that might bring that first snow yet. So right now with the storm track north, storms come out of Canada into the Midwest and into the Northeast, and that is where we'll see the greatest travel impact today and into the weekend. We don't have much in the way of cloud cover to start, but then the light cloud cover will come in the higher layers of the atmosphere with a weak dry front today. Temperatures will be below the average of 60. We're kind of in between two organized systems. One north of Atlanta, spreading showers from Washington, New York, and Boston. The next one for Colorado, still offshore in the Pacific, possibly bringing in some moisture maybe to the northern Rockies in the next 72 hours. Futurecast not overly excited about this and has a lot of the moisture going north of the ridge. And so, other than a few high clouds today and tonight and the passage of that front, we have a not so scary Halloween and Friday forecast where we start in the 20s, top out in the low 50s. We do have a warmer weekend, first full weekend of November, temperatures above average in the 60s and 70s. And of course, we fall back. Daylight saving time comes to an end this weekend. We set those clocks back 1 hour when we head for bed Saturday night. Look at the temperature trend for Colorado for the first week of November. Eventually, that other shoe is going to drop.
I'm 9 News Weather Impact Team's Katie LaSalle. As we wrap up the month of October, chilly conditions, cloudy skies. It's all because we have an area of low pressure pushing back in over northeastern Colorado, creating some cooler air. That is all ahead of our next ridge set to build back in across the region over the next several days as we begin the month of November. Above average highs, warm and dry. So if you're wondering, is it ever going to snow here in Denver? Well, tonight it's going to be clear skies and temperatures slightly colder, 27 degrees, and our sunset at 5:57. This will be one of the latest sunsets we see in quite some time. We fall back this weekend, and we're looking at a very dry weather pattern. So I will let you know on the 7-day forecast, we are not talking snowfall, but I want to talk about our time change. Our latest sunrise of the year will occur tomorrow morning at 7:29. The sun will be coming up earlier, so we'll have brighter mornings and earlier sunsets in the evenings. As we go into the month of November, forecasted highs tomorrow will also be slightly above average. Our typical high, 59, 63 for Saturday. Really, any plans you have this weekend, it is looking lovely here across Colorado. Perhaps heading to a corn maze up in Erie. We're talking 60s for Saturday, sunshine, warm for Sunday afternoon. And as we look ahead for Sunday in Denver, we are forecasting out at the airport 77 degrees. The record, that was 78, set back in 2008. So we're talking closer to record highs than we are snow. Our average for snowfall in and around the metro area typically occurs in mid to late October. We did not see that this year. The earliest ever on record was September 3rd of 1961, and the latest was back in December the 10th there in the early 2000s. And we are going to be going into 200 days of no snow here over the Denver area. The latest first snowfalls that we have seen occurred back in 2021 on December 10th. And then as we see mainly in November, mid to late November is our latest snowfalls. We are inching closer to that territory. As you can see, our 7-day forecast, it is staying dry, mild, with temperatures well above average in terms of both our highs and our lows coming up.
Still ahead, we'll share some Halloween safety tips for your furry friends. Halloween is a time for candy, costumes, and fun, but it could also pose some serious risk for your pets. Kids love hiding candy, but a dog's nose can find it anywhere, and many treats are toxic. Chocolate, especially dark chocolate or baking chocolate, can be dangerous, and sugar-free candy with xylitol can make pets seriously sick, or it could even kill them. Keep pets away from the front door during trick-or-treating, all the strangers, the noise, it could be really stressful for them. Give them toys or treats in a quiet room instead. Be careful with those costumes and decorations. A knocked over candle or tangled outfit can lead to some injuries. And if your pet seems uncomfortable, just go ahead and skip that costume. Maybe save it for next year. And make sure your pet has an ID tag or even a microchip and reflective collar in case they get spooked and run off. If your pet eats something toxic, call your local vet or the ASPCA Animal Poison Control Center at 888-426-4435. Now let's take a final check on your forecast, especially for the Seattle area where we're already starting to see some of that rain moving in. So this is really going to cover the Western Washington area as well as portions of northern Oregon. You see how rain is already starting to spread over Western Washington and Vancouver Island, and it's only going to increase as the day goes on. And by the way, if you watch this a little later, this is from 10:52 a.m. So here's a look at the Futurecast, some of the newest data just coming through as we speak over the last couple of hours. And you see how we have some of that rain. This is later this afternoon on Friday. Just going to zoom out real quick for you. So you see how rain starts to spread over the area as we get closer to trick-or-treat time. Here's about 5 o'clock already spreading over all of Western Washington. Meanwhile, northwestern Oregon seeing that slow spread of rain. Here's around 7, 8 o'clock. This is Pacific time. You see maybe a break northwest of Seattle. That might actually be the place to be, except it's going to be windy. Then we get into the overnight hours, and you see how rain just won't let up over Western Washington and northwestern Oregon, including Portland. Overnight, the rain spreads over much of Oregon and Washington into the morning hours. Here's about 6:30, and you see the yellows, the oranges, even some reds. That's indicating some pockets of heavier rain. And so then we get through the morning hours on Saturday. You see how it kind of tapers off to the southwest and offshore around 11 o'clock, but rain coverage or rain intensity could continue to pick up over Western Washington, up over the Cascades, and then closer to the Oregon coast, maybe tapering off, as you heard Rod Hill mention as well. Now, with all of that being said, it's still going to be on the blustery side, especially Saturday morning into the afternoon. We're watching for the potential for this low to develop, and kind of similar to last weekend where we had a good bit of damage, wind damage reports over Washington and portions of Oregon, that we could have some downed tree limbs, we could have some spotty power outages, just because we are expecting the potential for wind gusts over 30 to 40 miles per hour. And this time of year, typically, because we have some of those drought-stricken trees, and that could lead to them being a little more on the delicate side. And just because we have so much greenery out here and a lot of wooded areas, that could cause some of them to come down. Also, leaves, they are very wet. They're saturated at this point, and so that makes some of the tree limbs even heavier, and that could pull some of those down. Clogged drains as well. Now, there is that potential, and you heard Rod mention this, for another round of rain, maybe a band of showers rolling over the area from Western Washington, down I-5 from Vancouver all the way down to about Olympia, possibly Saturday night and into the overnight hours, eventually moving over Portland, but it should be on the lighter side Saturday night. But this could change, so be sure to check in with your local meteorologist to see if anything has changed after that, but the bulk of it will stay over Western Washington. Then we get into Sunday with things tapering off, and so that's when things should start to wind on down. And Sunday will be the driest day, which, you know what, that actually makes up for it all, considering we get that extra hour of sleep and those earlier sunsets as well. Definitely going to be in that 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock range, except for Phoenix and Arizona, they do not fall back. So daylight saving is not a thing there. And I'm sure a lot of you don't want the the daylight change as well. I wanted to show you the Seattle 7-day forecast because again, this is when we have, it's loading, give it a second. Just to show you what we're expecting as we head into Halloween weekend, because we are under first alert here in Seattle and Western Washington. It's more so tonight and into the overnight hours because of the rain and then the gusty winds rolling on in as well. Into the back half of our weekend into next week, it's atmospheric river season, so we are going to have a good bit of rain rolling in over the next couple of days. I'll zoom out on our satellite and radar just to kind of show you what we're dealing with. You see that stream of moisture just moving over the Pacific, that atmospheric river there, and so we still have ways to go. That's why we're going to see that wet weather. Whereas our friends, and you heard all of our meteorologists in California, the desert, also staying on the nice and dry side, and then chilly for our friends in Spokane, and then in Boise as well, so a chilly trick-or-treat there. And then much cooler in Denver for our Halloween, much cooler, so in the 60s for highs, and by the weekend it's going to be our 40s and 50s and 60s, and then by the weekend it's going to be significantly warmer. That's going to do it for us here on Weather Out West on this Halloween. I'm meteorologist Ashley Ruiz. Hope you have a very safe and happy Halloween.